Hey everybody, glad you could join me for another new live demo. Today we're going to be working with some Czech beads. Those are probably one of my very favorite types of beads, and we're going to be making a necklace. And there are lots of different choices that you can that you have, depending on the kind of beads you have and what you like. I am going to show you three different kinds that I have made, and one of them I'm wearing. And like I said, these are all Czech beads, and there's just lots of potential for some really cute things. I think everybody that does any kind of beadwork probably has a ton of beads, and you don't necessarily have to use Czech beads, but if you have them, I think they make a really pretty necklace. So the technique I'm showing with the wire wrapping is good for any kind of bead, any kind of two-hole bead, and you can just kind of let your imagination kind of go and try some different things. Hello, Mary. Hello, Mary. Both Marys here. Um, I'm hoping some more people will join us in the moments ahead, and I'm going to be checking on my laptop periodically and say hi to everybody who comes in. Hopefully, I will catch that. So, um, anyway, I'm going to start off by showing you the necklaces that I've already made. This particular one is with Czech uh, window beads. I believe that's what they're called. And these are really kind of fun. I don't have any more to work with right now, but I did look on Etsy, and there are quite a few vendors that have them for sale if you want to get them. I don't know the names of their shops offhand, but all you have to do is put Czech window beads in there, and different sites will come up. So, and I like the fact that these are multicolor, but you could do, a one or two color theme, whatever you like. So there's that. Uh, there's the one that I have on, and this is all Czech Picasso tube beads. If you can see it here. And the thing that I really like about this one is that you can hook a pendant on to this. This was a metal clay pendant that I made a while back, and it had the two holes on either side of the pendant. So I was able to hang this pendant by uh, by dividing the strand in half. Basically, you just added a couple jump rings, and you can put the pendant on. So that's another one. Then the third one I have is one that has, this one's not finished. I'm going to work on this today during the demo. This one has hammered fine silver links that I have made and added to the design. So we're going to make these hammered links during this demo time as well. So if you don't know what I'm talking about or don't know how to do it, you'll get the guidelines of, I'll walk you through the process of that. So let's see here. So what I'm using for the wire is, okay, it kind of uncoiled a bit. I am using 22 gauge 22 gauge sterling silver wire, the round sterling silver wire, and it comes in a spool sometimes, I guess depending on how much length you buy. I probably got about 15 or 20 feet, so that's how they package it, is in this spool. And so that's for all the bead components. That's to hook all these beads together. I'm also using, and they are already made, but I'm using jump rings that are sterling silver 18 gauge 4 millimeters. And those are going to be connecting all the beads together. Now for the hammered silver links, I am using either 16 gauge or 14 gauge fine silver wire. And I'm using fine silver as opposed to sterling because I'm able to fuse these together. I don't have to use any solder. I don't have to pickle them and clean them. It just saves a step. Fine silver wire is a little bit more expensive than sterling silver, but to me it's worth it, depending on what it is that I'm making. It just really cuts a lot of time, and it's just easy to work with. So I will show you that as I go along here. Actually, that's probably what I'm going to start off with making is the coil of jump rings, or of the hammered links before they're hammered. Okay, I hope I don't confuse you too much, because sometimes I kind of ramble with my thoughts, and hopefully you'll be on the same page that I'm at. If you have any questions, you can put them in the comments, and I will look at those periodically and see if I can answer them. Now, with this particular one that I'm not finished with, this has a variety of different Czech beads. These are ones that I maybe used on other projects, and I had some spares. So, you know, they're all kind of fun. I've got leaves and just little round rondelles and some Czech tubes and squares, and just some random different pieces that I think make a nice necklace, you know, regardless. I mean, they're just kind of like maybe what some people would call orphan beads. You know, you have just maybe a couple of them, you don't have a whole bunch, and they kind of sit around where you don't know what to do with them. This is a perfect project for that sort of thing. So, and I think the addition of the hammered links in this one is just another plus. So that's the three that I'm going to show you. And you saw the one that I'm wearing is just all the tube beads. These are basically what I used. If you watched, well, I had a project, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago, where I did a memory wire bracelet, and I ordered all these Czech tube beads. These are Czech Picasso tube beads. And I have all these left over, just waiting for other projects. And I got to tell you, this is my favorite of all of them. It's just very simple, and it's all uniform, and you're able to add a pendant on there with no problem. So it's a winner for me. Okay, so let's see here. What else? I'm using a round nose pliers and chain nose pliers and flat nose pliers and some fine flush wire cutters. These are really important that you have nice fine flush wire cutters. They'll do a nice neat job. You can get in tight little spaces to do the trimming. What else? Well, I guess we'll get to that when we get to that. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is make a coil of what will be the hammered links. I also have a jeweler saw. If you don't want to use a jeweler saw, this is where the fine flush wire cutters really come in handy, because you need to have perfectly flush ends in the ring, in the circle link that I'm going to be making, for them to fuse together to each other. So that's very important, and we'll talk about that as we go. Now, the first thing, hi Bev, the first thing, I'm going to move the camera down, and I'm going to use my wire winder, which hopefully I'll get all this stuff in the frame so you can see it all. where is my, oh, here's my wire. Okay, so here's my wire winder. I'm going to just C-clamp this to the table just to hold it on. I have different little stations in my work area, so usually these things have a different home, so I just kind of transport them here to do the demos. Now I've chosen a mandrel. The mandrels come in different sizes. There's a whole bunch of different sizes. You can get something like this at Harbor Freight. This actually was a set that I got years and years ago, before, I want to say, before Kevin Potter started carrying these, Kevin Potter from Potter USA. So this is a real primitive gizmo, but it works just fine. It's just a, I don't know what you call it, other than a wire winder with different mandrels, and they make the different sizes. These are all marked in the base of what size that I'm going to be using. So this particular one, and it doesn't really matter a whole lot what size you make your links. I mean, it doesn't have to be a specific size other than the, other than what size you want. There's not a whole lot of variation. I mean, there is, but there isn't as far as the rings go, size-wise. That was very clear, I don't think. But like that. This was probably this size. This is 11.5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, this is 14 gauge wire here, and I'm going to take some wire. Ooh. I'm going to take some of the 14 gauge wire and I'm going to coil it on this little gizmo here. And I do it a little bit different than a lot of people I've seen, but that's okay. You can do it however you want to do it. This is just how I started doing it many years ago, and I just found it easier to just try to just stay with this rather than unlearn it and learn a different way. It just, my brain doesn't work that well that way. So there's a little slot here at the end, and I'm just going to put my wire in that slot, just a little piece of wire, just to get it going, to hold it in place. And I'm going to just wind the silver wire around the mandrel, and I'm holding the wire firmly in my non-dominant hand and just twisting it around or twirling it around, whatever, just depending on how many rings I want. Now, you're typically going to lose the first and the last ring. They might not line up perfectly when you go to cut them. So I always wind a couple extra more just to make sure I have enough, but I don't want too many. Okay, so then I'm going to just pull that off of the wire, or off of the mandrel, and I have a little coil of jump rings. Now, this 14 gauge wire is a little bit thick for these flush cutters, these Tronics flush cutters. These are like little razor cutters, and I really love them because they really do get close and nip those little wire ends really well. But it can be hard on them to use them on a 14 gauge wire. 16 gauge, yeah, no problem, but 14 gauge is a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to cut that off, that little coil, and put my 14 gauge wire away for now. This is like precious stuff these days with the cost of silver. So you don't want to waste it unnecessarily. But then again, any scrap that you have, you can always turn that in and still get money back for all the little scrap pieces. Okay, so that's that. And I can move this thing out of the way. This is what I use to make all my jump rings, the 4mm, 5mm, all the different sizes that I use. like for chainmail and different things too. So it's a really handy little gizmo. Okay. So next thing, it's another portable thing that I'm using, is my bench pin to cut my jump rings off into little individual rings. All right, so C-clamp that on here. This again is not my usual place for this. I have a permanent one on my bench. Okay, and now I'm going to, where are my cheaters? Are they on my head? No, they're over here. I have to feel my head to see if they're up here. Okay, so now I've got this coil of jump rings, but I have a wonky wire out this way, so I want to get rid of that. I'm going to snip that off. And I'm going to get my jeweler saw. This is not my strong suit, using a jeweler saw. I don't like it. I've never become comfortable with it. A lot of people love to saw, and I think that's wonderful, but it's just not one of my things that I enjoy. I don't ever feel like I can really get in the groove doing this. So I'm going to lubricate my saw blade. And let's see if you can see a little bit better. And I'm going to, let's see. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing because my hand's kind of in the way. Can you see that? I don't think so. Well, I'm going to just start. And you keep your saw blade going up and down, not side, not bent over like this. You want to keep it up and down. And you start to detach the rings. This is going to be the cleanest cut you'll get with the saw blade. This will be your most even, no gouging. It's just a straight cut through the metal, and it's just the best if you can do it. When you cut and disconnect your links with the pliers or the cutters, you're taking little chunks of that circle out, so it's harder to line them up to be even, to get a flush join on them so that you can solder them properly. If you know what I'm talking about. People that are, metalsmiths, whatever, they know exactly what I mean, but I'm sure there's lots of people here that don't understand the terminology, and I want to try to explain it as best I can for you. Okay, so now I've got a couple more that I've separated. Okay, and like I said, these were the 11.5 millimeter size. And I kind of just take them off after I've made a few, so that way they don't fall all over the floor, because I'm kind of sloppy that way. So, okay. So I'll just do a couple more, and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay. So I have a few there to work with. Put this other stuff to the side. Close up my burr life there. All right, you with me? Okay, and I'm using Burr Life as the lubricant, but there are other products out there that are comparable. The important thing is to keep the lid on here once you're not using it so it doesn't dry out so badly, because they do dry out, and this one is partially dried out, so but it still works. Okay, so I've got the jump rings cut that I'm going to use. I call them different things all the time. I mean, they're jump rings, but I'm not connecting them as jump rings. So I refer to them a lot as links, but they're just circular links that I connect other things to them. All right, so the next step is to solder these closed. Now, I would probably, well, most regularly, clean these only to get that burr life off of them. I'm not going to do that right now, but even if you just run them under really hot water, that will take the burr life off of there, just so that you can get them soldered nicely together, have it work. So nothing messes that up. All right, so here's my soldering stuff over here. I had some others that I had coiled before, and I thought about just using those, but I thought I really should show you what I'm doing. So I'm just going to get some of this. And like I said, these are 14 gauge, but 16 gauge works fine in this type of project, and it will be a little less expensive too. So if you're looking at that, that might be a factor. All right, so I'm going to take 2 pairs of flat nose pliers, and I'm going to close these rings flush. I want them as they are right now. You can see the split, the division in there. This one's not very good. This must have been one where I cut it off. I won't use that one. This is perfect. Sometimes with the method of, well, let me show you the method of cutting them off, disconnecting them with wire cutters, in case you don't want to go the jeweler saw route. Okay. On your cutters, you have the flat on the back and then the indented on the front of the pliers. We always want to cut from the back of the plier because that's going to make a flat or flush cut on this part of the wire. So as you disconnect, like where I disconnected this one initially, I had just cut it with my pliers. So there's a little bit of a point on this end, which when you go to close it, it's not going to close well because it's got this little point sticking out. So you need to get rid of that. So from behind, from the back of the plier, that side, I'm going to go into the wire and I'm just going to snip off, so I say, snip off that little piece that stuck out. So now it's flat there. I also cut into my wire. That's why it was tough, which is what you don't want to do. So for the next cut, I want to disconnect this link from the others. So now that piece that I'm going to connect or disconnect has to be cut also from the back side. And I'll just go in there and cut that off. I didn't do that very well. I'll do another one. It's cut, but you can definitely see there's some flaw in here. That's not going to make it, it's going to make it not seal well. I really butchered this because I dug into the wire next to it, which you don't want to do. So I'm turning the cutter over, and that's a cleaner cut right here. But it's not perfect. It's not perfect. So this has still got a little bit of a point. And this is where you can kind of get yourself in trouble by snipping, trying to correct a problem. Sometimes it works, and more than not, it doesn't. That it won't line up very well. But it's better. But it's still, you can see, I hope you can see, that there's a little bit of non-flushness. I don't know what else to say. But that's how you would disconnect them. You cut from the back side, then you turn your plier over and you cut again. So you're constantly turning over, cutting off that little beak, I call it a beak, and cutting the other to disconnect. But like I said, this is less desirable than cutting with a saw. You're going to do a much better job, a nice cleaner cut with the saw. Hi, Suzanne. Okay, so I'm going to put some of these failures to the side and use the ones that I cut with the saw. Actually, I should solder one of the ones that aren't quite so nice so you can see what can happen with those. But I'm closing these now, just like you would a jump ring. And when I'm doing that, I'm kind of giving it an inward pressure and a little bit of a wiggle because I want to get rid of any space that is noticeable. I want to make sure that they're very nicely closed. You're going to have much better soldering success if they're closed really well. This one's got a little bit of a gap, but I'm gonna put this one to the side, and maybe we can make a comparison of how that works when we solder it. And then when I get ready, this one I already did. When I get ready to solder, that one's kind of caca. This is better. And the ones that are kind of caca, you can either use them for another project in another way, or you can put them in your scrap pile and you will be able to still get some money back on your silver, which I do. I keep all my little silver scraps and turn it in maybe once a year and get a nice check back for it, in which I can buy more stuff. So there's a method to the madness. Okay. All right. That one more here. And I'm using a micro torch. That is what I'm going to fuse these together with. They don't need any solder, any flux, nothing. Okay. That's the one I was going to experiment with. So when I go to solder these now, I always put the split side towards me, because sometimes if you seal them really well, sometimes it's hard to see where that seam is, and you want to make sure that you're zeroing in on that seam when you're soldering, and so that way you don't have a puddle. This is the one in question, if it'll fuse properly. Now let's see if I have the all these little tiny bits of silver you keep. All right. Now I'm just using a little micro torch, and I have a little bowl of water to quench them because they will be very hot. All right, let's see here. Hi, Deb. Hi, Jamie. Yep, you're right, Jamie. You can always use them for other projects, any kind of ones that aren't so hot. All right. So I'm going to use my torch. If I remember how to use it. There we go. And I'm going to warm up the links. Just warm them up. Should use my right hand because it's better. I'm just going to circle around and warm the whole link up. And as it starts to get ready, it kind of changes, kind of satiny looking. I don't know if you can tell that from here, but it's just about ready. And now I'm going to zero in on that split. There we go. There we go. You see how it got real liquidy? Like slick looking? That's normal. But any more than that it would have resulted in a puddle, a silver puddle. There we go. As soon as you start to see that slick, shiny look, that's when it's just about ready to fuse. But you need to circle around and keep the whole piece of silver warm so that it melts at the right temperature. Now, I know I've done this before in other videos. You may not have seen them, or you may be new to the group and not seen any of this stuff, but uh, it's always kind of nice to have a little refresher if you've already seen stuff. And I'm trying to hit the flame where the thinnest part of the blue flame is where it's the hottest, and that's really where you want to be at, uh, especially when you're zeroing in on fusing that seam. After you've done a few of these, you kind of get the feel for it. It's not to say that you won't melt some occasionally, because I still do that from time to time, but you get more of a feel for it the more you do it. I'm also going to do one. This is the one that didn't have a really great seam. I got it, but it's a little bit more fried. Okay, so I'm going to quench all of these. And I'm going to show you one that more than likely will not fuse because of the way that it was cut. Just so you have a reference to not do what I did. This one. This one has got points, point to point, which is really bad. That one's going to fail no matter what. This one is gouged a little bit, but we'll see if it'll work or not. And I just want you to see what can happen. Okay, so I've got the split towards me. Well, it's soldered, but it was weak right here. And this is what I thought would happen. It's not good. It's not good. It's just very thin. There's just a thread of silver between the joint where the joint would be. So that's a definite fail. But I knew that that was going to happen. But I wanted to show you what happens when they're not closed really well. Okay? All right. So the soldering part is done. And that's why I like fine silver so much, because I don't have to pickle and clean it. I can just proceed with hammering them. And I didn't bring my paper towel. It's around here, but not close enough. All right. So I've got my nice little rings, and I'm going to hammer them now to give them some texture. And you only do this on one side, because if you try to do it on the other side, it kind of like takes away the first side. So you can either carefully hold this with a finger, a thumb, whatever, or you can use a craft stick if you are afraid that you're going to pound yourself. So I'm using the ball peen part of this chasing hammer, and I'm just going to tap around and make some little texture marks. If your soldering was not successful, it's going to come apart at this point. This gives a nice hammered look that kind of the light reflects off of. Now, I would more than likely tumble all of these before I connected them to the brace or to the necklace, just to get them nice and shiny. You don't have to do that, but I would recommend it if you can. Or if you don't have a tumbler, maybe you could take a polishing cloth or something like that and just shine them up a little bit. And, you know, like I said before, you could either use 4T gauge or 16 gauge. There's nothing wrong with using 16 gauge. However, if you have a heavy hand, you can really flatten them. At this point, you could flatten them pretty paper thin. So if that's what you want, that's fine. But I kind of like a little bit of heft to them without being heavy. Okay. So I don't know if you can tell on the camera or not, just to get the shine from these little, it gives it almost a faceted effect, but it picks up the light real nicely. All right, so I'm not going to do all of these, just a few. And there are different kinds of hammers for texture, or you could, there's texture hammers. There's ones like this that just give it that oh, I don't know, that faceted kind of look. Or you could actually take metal stamps, design stamps, and you can texture with those. You won't see the design per se as for what it is, but you'll get portions of that design, which can look very cool when you're stamping on these thin little pieces. Do one more. Now, as a side note, I have used these links in so many different projects, and I just love them. this is actually the bracelet that I have on. This is all those links that I made just like this. And I alternated, now you don't have to, but I alternated like a larger one with a smaller one, you know, all the way around. Um, I've made earrings like this, necklaces like this, like a chain, that sort of thing. It's just a very simple design, and yet it kind of like goes with anything. So there's lots of stuff you can do with these little links like that. All right, so I've got a few to work with, and now we'll get to the beaded part. Get my little scraps here. All right, are you with me? Okay, get rid of this bench pen. Hi, Carol. No, Jamie, I'm using fine silver for these links. You know, I tried working with Argentium. I still have some, but I'm not a fan. Maybe I haven't given it enough trial, whatever, but I like my fine silver a lot. Hi, Wendy. Yeah, you know, it's whatever you're used to or you like to use. Argentium would be just fine for this. If that's what you have, then I would go for that. But if you have to buy it, I'm partial to the fine silver. All right, so now we're going to move over here to the beaded portion. And it takes a while. If you haven't done wire wrapped loops, if you haven't done them often or not at all, it takes a while. It's a skill that you develop over time, and it's repetition. It's totally repetition. I'll show you this, here in the demo, but I also have a video on YouTube. It's one of the first ones that I put out, and that was like 11 years ago. But I'll put a link in the group page, or if you're watching this on YouTube later, I'll post a link for that one on the YouTube channel, and that you can take your time with that. It's just that one technique of making the loop. I walk through that with you, and it doesn't take very long. You may need to replay it to get it, but it's like once you get it and you've done it for a while, you're not going to ever forget it. It's just like working with chainmail too. It's confusing at first, but when you keep at it, you just get better at it, and it's like something you don't forget. So I'll like I said, I'll post that. And what else? Okay. Excuse me. All right, so I'm going to pull up my beads over here, my bead tray. And it's kind of a mess because that's how I work. And it's like a free-for-all for a while. I'm also going to be using 4mm jump rings as my connector. I think I said that before, but if you didn't hear it, that's what I'm using. And I'm also, I think, going to make a pair of earrings to match this as well, which takes no time at all. All right. So let's see. All right. So I've got kind of a mess up here. All right. So I've got my wire, and I would recommend, this for the chain, you're going to be using a loop on each end. Okay, so your bead see that. Can you see that? It's just a bead with a loop on either end, like that. Okay. Okay. There's a little bit of lag between me showing you that and me able to see it on the laptop to see if I've got it in the right frame. Excuse me. Okay. All right. So I would say when you're first beginning, depending on the size bead that you're going to use, you probably want about 2.5 inches of wire, 2.5 to 3 inches. I hate to say 3 inches because sometimes that's way overkill, but as you go along, you'll get a better feel for the length that you're going to need. All right, and I kind of eyeball that measurement. I'm just going to cut off a few pieces. All right. So I've got my round nose, my chain nose, and my tiny wire cutters, which I love, love, love. I'm going to start with making one loop. And I'm going to probably put a good inch into the plier. Now let me see if I can do this in front of you like this, maybe with my shirt as the background. So here's my wire. All right, and I've got it into the jaws of the plier, and my pliers, what I call my horizontal position. Okay, so that's how I have it. The pliers are flat this way. Now I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to push the wire away from me. Okay, so you kind of have like an upside down L right now. You can see that. Now I'm going to release the grip on my hand without taking the wire out. I'm just going to release the grip on my hand and I'm going to roll the plier on top. Okay, so the tines of the plier are this way now. I call that vertical, but it's not really vertical. To distinguish between the two, I have the horizontal and the vertical. Okay, so that's where it's at right now. Now I'm going to take my finger and I'm going to push from underneath. I'm going to push this wire up and over the top tine of this plier. See, like that. Now I'm going to release the grip on my hand again on the pliers and roll the plier back to the horizontal position and push this short wire underneath the pliers. So now you have this. I always call him my little guy, my little stick guy with a scarf flowing out. Okay, now I'm going to take my chain or my round nose pliers again, and I'm going to hold on to that loop. I'm holding on to the loop, just the loop, and I'm going to change my hands, change the plier into my left hand, my non-dominant hand, and I'm going to take the chain nose pliers, and from the tip of the wire, I'm going to grab the tip of the wire, reposition that, the tip of the wire and the tip of the pliers, and I'm going to roll or pull that wire around. Oh, I'm not in the frame. I'm going to pull that wire around. I'll do this down too, with the camera pointing down too. So I'm wrapping around. Maybe you'll see it better when I put the camera down. So I'm wrapping the wire around, like 3 times around the loop. Then I straightened up the loop a little bit. Excuse me. And I'm going to cut that little tiny piece. Can you see that? That little tiny piece that's hanging up there or sticking out. I'm going to cut that little tiny piece. Okay. And I have my first loop. All right. I'll do this downwards too. We'll see if that's any better. Okay. Now I can put a bead on. Okay, because I've got the loop made, the one end. So I will stick on, well, I'll stick on one of these tubes that I've got all in front of me here. I'll take one of the tubes and put that in. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to position it directly right on top of this bead. I don't want any space. Okay, you might think that you need some space, but you don't. You want to put your pliers, the round nose pliers, right on top of that bead. And I'm going to repeat, pushing the wire away from me in this position, the pliers in this position. Then I'm going to release my grip and roll the pliers up. And now I'm going to push this wire up and over and down in front. Let's see if you can see that. Okay, and now I'm going to continue to push that wire behind, underneath and behind. So now I have my other loop. All right, now I'm going to grab that loop with my round nose pliers, change my hand position, and I'm going to take the tip of the wire and on the tip of the pliers, and I'm going to turn this around the base of that loop that I just created in little increments, little turns. You want to go 2 to 3 times around, or whatever space you have that isn't covered by wire or up to the bead. You want to make sure that your bead is nice and snug in that wire, between that wire. And then you're going to snip as close as you can. And then that little tiny piece that sticks out, you're going to take your chain nose pliers and just push that down against the bead. And now you have a perfect wire wrapped bead. I like to have my loops go the same way, so I'm just turning them like this. If the hole is a little wonky and that bothers you, you can just put the tine of your plier into that loop and kind of manipulate it just a little bit to stretch it out and to get it right back in shape. Okay, so now you have a double-looped or double-ended loop wire wrap bead. Okay, so let's do another one. am leaving a good inch or more. Maybe it's a little bit more. I kind of eyeball everything, but it's at least an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter of length. There again, it depends on the size of the bead that you're going to use in between here. Okay, so I've got it in I've got the pin in my horizontal position. I'm pushing the bead away from me. Pushing the wire away from me. So now it looks like you've got an upside down L right now. Now I'm going to release the grip on my hand and just move the plier up into what I call the vertical position. And then I'm going to push that wire up and over and down in front on the plier. Then I'm going to reposition back to the horizontal position and continue to push that short wire underneath the plier, the tine of that plier, and you have your loop. You have your little stick guy. All right. Now I know that there is other ways to do this. A lot of people do it differently than I do. But I have found this for myself to be a consistent way to do this. And it's just like anything else that I learn. I have a hard time unlearning it to do it a different way. So if this works for you, like it works for me, it's a winner, in my opinion. All right, now I'm going to grab that loop into the jaws of my round nose plier, change my hands, and grabbing the wire at the tip of the wire with the tip of the plier and start to bring it around the base of the loop. You want to be close to the base of the loop so it's nice and neat, and just bring that wire around. You might slip a little bit, that happens. And keep your wraps close together. And I usually wrap 3 times around. And then I'm going to snip off that little piece of extra wire there. And I'll put another bead in here. I'm going to put this leaf bead in here. Okay. And there again, you put your pliers into position right directly on top of the bead. Don't leave any space. Okay. Horizontal position. Push my wire away from me. Release the grip on my hand, roll it up on top of the wire. Take that wire from the back, push it up and over that top tine of the plier and down in front. The wire is down in front. Release the grip on your hand to back to the horizontal position and continue to push excuse me, that wire under and back. It's a little different when you've got a bead on. It's different, but it's the same, really. So you get that little stick guy. And sometimes if you have too much wire here to be pulling around, sometimes it's best to just snip some of that off. It makes it easier to deal with. So I'm going to take the tip of the wire with the tip of the plier, wrap the wire closely to the base of that loop, and wrap it around as many times as you need to get that bead snugly in between the wire. This bead shape is a little bit more challenging than just a flat bead, but it can be done. And then push that little extra nib of wire into the, just kind of push it in a little bit so there's no sharp pieces sticking out. So there's that. So you may not be able to see it as well as I can see it up close here, but the wire wrap is nice and neat on both ends. Okay. So once you do that to a gazillion beads, like I've done here, Deb says 100% that one never forgets, because I go back to your videos after I screw up and watch, slap my forehead and off to the races. You know, that's the beauty of having this stuff recorded, is that you can go back time and time again, if you can remember where it's at. That, of course, that's a thing, but it makes it so much easier to just pull up a video and kind of check against what you're doing and make sure that you're doing it right. Okay, so I've got all these little components here, and I've got 4mm jump rings that I'm going to use. And basically just start connecting. You can decide on a pattern, you know, however you want. What I had done with this one is I kind of decided that I was going to do 6 beads, 6 different beads, and then I would add a link on. So I'm just going to follow with that that pattern, you know, do 6 beads, a ring, 6 beads, a ring. I call it ring, I call it link, you know, I call it different names, but I hope you understand what I'm talking about. And then just connect them. Get your 2 pairs of flat nose pliers again and connect with the 4mm jump ring. And I try to give it a little variety of what I'm working with here. But I find these to be just really fun, and I find it relaxing. Where's that other one I did? This one, this little tube. I love these tubes. And I have lots of, maybe some of you recognize some of these beads from some of the kits that I've made over the last few years. They're just great to have around and incorporate into different things. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to put one more on here, and then I'll put a silver link on. What do I want to put on here? Maybe a flower. Also, okay, so I've got my 6 beads on here, so now I'm going to add hammered link. And I have different sizes from different projects that I made, so I kind of mix them up. You know, sometimes, well, just like I did on my bracelet that I showed you a few minutes ago. They don't all have to be the same size, and they don't have to all have the same texture on them. They can be whatever you want them to be. There's no rules on this, and nobody's going to question you. I would doubt it and say, well, why did you make it this way? I mean, either people don't even notice or they admire it, because they like what you put on there. Now, for myself, so you're just connecting the links um, with the 4 millimeter uh, jump rings. Now, when I did, which one did I do? I think the one that I have on me, I think the one that I have on me, they're 4 millimeter jump rings now, but I think I started off with 3 millimeter ones, and they kind of kinked a little bit. So I took the 3 millimeters off and put 4 on there, and the beads are able to turn around a lot easier, a lot freer. So it's not that much difference in space, but apparently it makes a difference. But that's with the tubes. And like I said earlier, I think it just makes uh, for a nice kind of a chain kind of a feel. It doesn't necessarily have to be just like a necklace. It could be like a chain. Um, Debbie, I do not solder the jump rings. I don't. Um, Unless you have a toddler who is like raging and pulling on your stuff, those things should not come apart. If you wanted to do it, you could, but I would find that incredibly tedious to solder all those little things. I know there are people that have and do, but I'm not one of them. The jump rings are 18 gauge sterling silver, and I make them all, Linda. I get my wire. I have all my wire. I use my little wire winder, and I have the mandrels that have all the different sizes on them. And like I say, this is for 4 millimeter jump ring, and I just make them all. And then I have the cutter, the cutter that attaches to my flex shaft, that kind of just slices them. It's a little bit more involved than that, but basically, in a nutshell, that's kind of what it does. There's like a little trough that you put your coil of jump rings in there, and it has a safety guard on the top, and you just zip along, and it's wonderful. Potter USA sells them. I think they still sell them. I know they did for many years. You'd have to see if they still have them in stock. But it's an investment, but not a bad one. It has paid for itself over and over again with all the jump rings that I've made. Um, so I make them in all different sizes, and I can make them in copper as well. I just use a different blade when I use copper, or when I cut copper. Copper's a little bit stiffer, and you can go through blades relatively quickly. So I just try to save my blade for silver separate than my one for copper. It would be too tedious to cut them all by hand, with just flush cut cutters. So this is where I stand now with this necklace, and I just have to add more of the little units that I have on there. Now I tend to like to make my necklaces to fit over my head, so I don't have to have a clasp on them, but you can definitely put a clasp on them. I have one on this one, although it does fit over my head, which I will take this off. I don't want to eat it though. Let's see here. All right. So this one I just have a simple lobster clasp and a soldered jump ring right here for the end. I just love this one. I don't know why sometimes something just kind of hits you, you know. It's just the simplicity of it, I guess, maybe. I just really like that. And the fact that you can add a little pendant on there. is the icing on the cake. Okay. So yeah, like I said, you can put any kind of clasp on here that you want. You could do something like this, put a clasp like this on there. But I find these a little bit tedious unless you're wearing it in the front, where you can get to them a little bit easier. But um, I purposely made oh, the lengths on these so that I could wear them multiple if I wanted to. So they would fit nicely, a multiple one like that, something like that. It's another option. Now for the earring, which I kind of thought about at the last minute, if you wanted to use a link, one of these hammered links, you could definitely do that. And then when you get to the point, I'll do it in front of you so that you can see, you have to insert this ring into the loop before you close it. Okay. And you could do it without and hang it with the jump ring, but it adds to the length and doesn't really give anything aesthetically pleasing, in my opinion, by having that extra long length with a wrapped wire and a jump ring. Let me turn the camera down again and I'll show you that. All right. So what I did, this I used a head pin. Where's the head pins? Here they are. This one I used a head pin because I don't want a double loop on the bead. This is a 2-inch head pin. This is 22 gauge, or you could use 24 gauge. Either one works. And let's see here. I need a bead like this one. And I'll put this in here. And put the bead directly on, or the pliers directly on top of the bead. And do the push over away from me. Roll the plier up. Push the wire up and over. Move the pliers again. And start to make your loop. Now when you get to this point, this is where you're going to add your link. Oh, you love my glasses? This is my ridiculous look of wearing glasses over glasses. Just cheap cheater glasses from the dollar store, the $1.25 store now. And where I'm over here, I have, makes my eyes look really big. I have lots of different optivisors and different kinds of magnifying glasses that I've bought over the years. I'm a creature of habit and comfort. So these are just easy. They're just easy. And you can get them in different strengths. So, you're paying $1.25 for them. You can get them in all kinds of strengths to see as good as you need to see. That and lighting is so important when you're working. I look professional? I don't think so. Bless your heart, Deb. Okay, so then I'm just going to take my link and just insert it into the bead, into the loop, I mean, just like that. And then I'm going to hold the loop with the round nose pliers. We're working in a small area, but it can be done. And I'm going to take the chain nose pliers to the tip of the wire and tip of the plier. Keep that in your mind. It's stupid, but it kind of helps reinforce. And just make little increments, turning all the way around the bead till you find like a resistance. It's like got all the bead is full. I mean, the wire is wrapped all the way fully to the bead. There's no space. Then cut that extra off. And push in that little tiny piece of wire, that little stabby wire. Like that. And that's just a design choice if you want to do it that way. And then I'll take a couple of jump rings up here. Like so. And then I'll take one and I'll put one jump ring into these two jump rings and get my ear wire, put the ear wire in and close that jump ring nice and tightly, and voila, you have a earring. Just like that. On my old wrinkled hands, age spotted wrinkled hands. It's a crime to get old. Okay, so that's a nice earring right there, in my opinion. As far as length goes, I think that's a nice earring. I don't like them too terribly long because I have like a neck. I don't have a long svelte giraffe neck like I wish I did. But I got what I got. So that's that. And that would look great with your necklace. Just like that. I hadn't planned on making kits. I don't think I will because, well, I wanted to do the window beads. That's, what I had intended to do with this demo initially. But I've got so many other Czech beads that I couldn't justify buying all the extra beads just to do the demo. So that's why I did it the way I did it. They're not cheap, especially if you want multiple colors, because, one vendor has maybe 2 or 3 colors. Another vendor maybe only has 1 color. You pay shipping on each of them. It racks up there pretty quickly. If that's not a big deal to you, then I say go for it. But, the demos can be kind of costly sometimes. And, I wanted to utilize what I already have. So I don't think I would have enough stuff to do it and be worth my while to do it. And Deb, I'm very bad about selling my stuff on Etsy. I need to revamp that. I've thought about maybe selling some stuff on here. And somebody suggested a while back maybe to sell the demo pieces, and maybe I can, because typically when I do a demo, I make the original to show you that, this is what's coming. And I might make another one just for practice, and then I make another one when we do the demo. So it's like I have 3, not all things, but on a lot of things, I have 3 of them. I don't need them. And I'm not really sure how to handle that, but I've got buttloads, buttloads of jewelry. So if you ever see anything that I demo and you say, "Hey, can I get one of those?" Just let me know because I'd be happy to accommodate you. I was supposed to do a show last month, and the weather was horrible, and I just decided I wasn't going to do it, and I was glad that I didn't do it, but I was really hoping, that I could have gone there and sold some of my stuff. Instead, I have boxes and boxes full of stuff. So, um, uh, you know, anyway. And the other thing with Etsy is, honestly, I don't like their policies. They take a lot of your money away, um, which I don't think is, I mean, everybody's got to make money, but if you're trying to not outprice yourself, um, it can be challenging to charge the right price and feel satisfied after you pay all the fees. So, Laura, that might work, to sell the demo on Etsy. Um, that's true. It's true. It could help future projects, but you know, I don't know. Those are all things I don't know about. So, anyway, yeah, Wendy, you're right. It's maybe better to have your own website, but you know, this old brain can only handle so much stuff anymore, and I don't know if it'd be profitable or if people would find me for that matter. So I was hoping, like I said, I was hoping I could do something through Facebook because there are no fees, but I don't really want to clutter up our group page with stuff either. So I don't know. It's just something I have to think about. I'll think about it this winter, maybe. Um, yeah. Well, thank you, Linda. I have a weird attitude, I know, but I don't know. I'll think about it. I mean, I've thought about it before, but I never really followed through with anything. So, but I have scads of stuff, and maybe with the holidays coming up, maybe it's a good time. But really, the reality of it is everybody that I'm teaching stuff makes stuff. So, why would you want to buy more stuff and not make your own? So there's that too. So, all right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. No pun intended, wrapping. Um, I'll put the link to the YouTube video in the group in a little bit. I will also send you the link for the handout because there's a handout. There's always a handout um, on what I did here today. And if you have any questions about any of this stuff, let me know anytime. I'm happy to. Um, Sandy says I'd buy because I'm lazy or don't have time. Well, there's that too. So I don't know. I don't know what I'll do in 2 weeks. I have a feeling I may do that embroidery hoop thing with the glass beads on there that I mentioned a while back. Uh, I'm not really sure. I don't want to always do like crafty stuff. I like crafty stuff, but I don't want this to all be crafty stuff. I want it to be, uh, jewelry making too. So, but honestly, I don't know what else. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining me. I always enjoy you guys being here with me, kind of cheering me on, and I'll see you in the group. Take care. Bye bye.